to the Inspire Wealth podcast with Prof, where we dive into the world of real estate investing and wealth building strategies. I'm your host, Mychele Bisson. I'm a real estate professor, attorney, and seasoned investor here to guide you through the ins and outs of creating wealth through real estate. If you're looking to take your real estate knowledge to the next level, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes and offerings. Welcome back to another episode of Inspire Wealth. I am your host, Mychele Bisson, aka Prof, and today I have the pleasure of being with Mychele. Mychele, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So we were chatting a little offline, but Mychele, why don't you give us a little background about how you got into real estate and then kind of how things have transformed based on your journey so far?
Well, like I was telling you earlier, what happened is that we were my husband had a great W-2 job. Everything was fine. We were living very well. Then all of a sudden COVID happened, and it was just kind of one of those game changers that made everything just kind of stop. And you just kind of start realizing, okay, maybe things aren't as secure as you always think they are. And so with that, it was just, what's going to be our plan B? What exactly do we do if the world has shut down and we can't do anything else? He worked in franchises. Most of them are restaurants. And, all the restaurants were shut down for a period of time, some of them for 6-7 months. It was a significant amount of time that everything just stopped. And it was just a real eye opener for us. So, I was talking to a friend one day, and she had up and moved her family during all of that to Tennessee, bought 3 cabins, and her kids were both in private college at the time. And I was like, what are you doing? How is that even possible? Her husband was retired from the Air Force at the time. And I was like, and I don't remember you having a job. I remember her doing things here and there, but nothing that was it wasn't the main breadwinner. So I was like, what are you doing? And she was like, well, we've been buying houses for the last 16 years. And so they had been building up this real estate portfolio in the background without anybody ever really knowing. And they were able to just at that point up and leave because they had been able to build this wealth that passively paid them. And so they had traveled the world. They still travel the world. Every time I look at her Facebook page, she's somewhere new. But they've built up this portfolio where they really just didn't have to worry about it anymore. And so, she's telling me all this. They're talking about cash flow. We're having this whole discussion with my husband. And when they leave from dinner that night, my husband looks at me and he's like, I think we could probably do that. And I was like, okay. So he says, I think we should look into it. And I hear in my own head, this is now what we're doing. And so the next day I contacted a real estate agent and actually put in an offer on a house while he was at a golf tournament. So he didn't know that this was what we were going into. He thought we were still having discussions. And by that point I had already put in an offer. It was already accepted and I already listed on Zillow. So we were kind of off to the races at that point in my own head. And so had it listed, had a deposit, had a contract to move in, all within a couple of days. Hadn't closed on it yet. We still had 30 days of closing. So I was kind of going by blind faith. That was on a Friday. By Monday, I had already found my second one that I put in an offer with. And at the end of that month and 30 days, we actually closed on both houses at this, I would think within 2 hours of each other. And we had tenants that moved into both of them that evening.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Now we're going to dive into kind of your financing strategy a little bit, but tell me a little bit about, so the first 2 deals, these were the first 2 houses, maybe outside of the house that you lived in, your primary residence that you had bought. So how did you come up with the financing strategy to acquire your first 2 properties?
So things were a little different. I mean, like I said, my husband had a very good W-2 job. So when we would go for bank loans, I didn't think that we were going to have a problem getting a bank loan at that time, especially since rates were so low and banks were practically giving money away. So we were able to put the 20% down for those houses. But over the course of that time, as we were acquiring houses, we ended up acquiring about 15 of them in a year and a half. While we were doing that, we did all kinds of different strategies. We had pulled out a HELOC and used that. We had pulled out stock. We had purchased one house completely with stock money that we had pulled out, bought it, rented it out for $3,000 a month, then turned around 6 months later, refinanced it, ended up getting equity out of it on top of it. So we ended up getting all the money plus, I think it was like $120,000 because it had increased so much in value. And then ended up buying our first STR, which was a beach house, which made us like $10,000 a week in rentals. So we really kind of maneuvered around doing as much as we could to pull out as much as we could. And doing all of that, we started to realize that we were going to run out of reserves. We were going to run out of ways to find money. And so we really needed to find a new way to do things. And that's when we kind of really started investigating creative financing.
I love that. No, that's 100%. And I think that that's a big part, especially in the financial environment that we're living in today, is that, while COVID and like that 2020, 2021 period of time, like money was readily available and people could get it pretty easily. But
They
now
were
we're
throwing
seeing,
at us.
yeah, right, right. I don't know that we'll ever see that again, but in the environment that we live in now, banks are definitely being more tight with how they're funding, and we're getting things to actually pencil and make cash flow. If you're going the traditional route, it's very hard, especially in some of these higher markets where the cost of entry is pretty high. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, can you give us a little background about where exactly some of your properties are located so that we can get an idea of like where you decided to invest in?
So at that point in time, we invested in our neighborhood because we really didn't know a lot outside of this. And this was our first time that we really got into any kind of real estate investing. So we invested in northern Colorado Springs. And if you know anything about Colorado, really popular destination. Lots of people are moving here, especially Colorado Springs. We have a lot of military that live here. We're up by the Air Force Academy, so we constantly have an influx of people coming in and out, which is great for rentals. A lot of my tenants are in the Air Force. So that's really helpful. I kind of have this built in clientele that is constantly moving in and out. We've had a couple of people that have come down from Denver Tech because we're about 40 minutes from Denver Tech, and it's so expensive up there that they started coming to like Colorado Springs, which is kind of a suburb. It's about 30-40 minutes outside of Denver. And so that kind of kept us in a position where we're constantly renting. So that was one of our first strategies. Then we started moving outside that. Like my oldest daughter moved to California and became a professional dancer, dancing for a talent agency out there and different kind of K-pop tours and things like that. And so we helped her invest in her first home, which she house hacked. So she was renting out her rooms and living for free. And then we did the same in Chicago where my stepson was going to school. And so we bought a condo out there, and he was potentially going to house hack that. We ended up just renting it out to a bunch of other college students because we were about a block from the college university.
I love that. No, and that's great. And I think that's a really important piece of advice for people who are looking to start their real estate investing journey is that the first market that you invest, it's easier if it's your backyard. It's
Yeah.
easier to understand the market that you're in, understand the trends, understand, pricing strategy. You can see all of these fancy places that people are recommending you put your money in, but when it comes down to it, especially your first one, you're learning, right? You're
Yeah.
learning how the game works and what things are good, what things are bad. And I will tell you, because I have invested in different markets that are not necessarily as close to me, and I've gotten away from that. And it is so much easier if the properties are within let's call it a 30 to 60-minute drive that you can easily access that, and you understand what's happening with the property, what's happening with your tenants, what's happening in the surrounding market, and 100% agree with you. And then expanding, if things like life changes are happening, you have children that are moving to different locations, or if you yourself want to visit a destination more frequently and having a beach house or something like that, I think that's a later on kind of strategy that's better used once you kind of get some footing.
Yeah. And I agree with that 100% because we really did. We learned from our own backyard. Like I said, I was a novice, had no idea what I was doing. But what I did understand was like who came into our area, how that worked out, how prices ran in our area. And it was so easy because I ran everything myself in the beginning. So I did all the property management. I interviewed all the tenants. I did all the payments, the deposits, like everything happened through me. And being able to be 5 miles from all of our rentals was super convenient.
Yeah,
So
no,
if anything happened, I could run over and just look at, why the water heater wasn't lit, or, it wasn't like I had to call somebody or find a maintenance guy or anything like that. And then as the children grew up, I was able to like place them in places because now we had built up this portfolio. I was able to help them buy something, help them house hack. And then they managed it there, but it was easier for me because I understood it here.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents, especially like when their kids are moving to college, like this is something they don't even think about. They don't think about the fact that like their kids or like they themselves could own the property that their kids are living in while going to school, while building up some long-term wealth and saving on costs. Because, for me, living in a college town, I know what these rents are that these kids are paying. And
Oh, yeah.
I am 100% going to have my daughter, house hack, and I'll probably have a property that's, ready for her once she's at that age, and she's only 5. So she has a little bit of time, and
You have a
we
little bit
can
of
build
time.
up the, we can build up
It
the
was
portfolio.
really nice though, because like, especially with my oldest, when she moved out to California, she decided not to go to college. And so she rented for a couple of years as she was trying to figure out if this is really what she wanted to do. And so
Mhm.
she ended up going out there. We rented, and it just got the prices of it were crazy. I think she was paying each one of them. There was 4 of them living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and each one of them was paying $1,500 a month to cover all their expenses. And I was like, this is crazy. So when she
Insane.
decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to stay, she was like, can you guys help me with the down payment on a place? We thought it was a great idea. So we found her a nice house that was kind of on the outskirts of West Hollywood. Um, it had 4 bedrooms, and then she rented out the master bedroom to 2 people, and then each other bedroom had 1 person in it, and then she had 1 bedroom. And all of them were paying, I think it was $900 a month, which is a drastic change from $1,500 each. But she was
Yeah.
making money paying for all the utilities, and she was able to live there for free.
Oh, perfect. I
Yeah.
mean, that's, obviously a win for everybody too, because if you're able to offer a more affordable option for those that were paying 1,500 a month, then, now you as I'm sure you probably have some ownership, or, however you structured it with your daughter, but you're now building equity every single month that they're paying the rent. So that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And we were able to, I mean, because when she ended up selling about a year ago, we had about 300,000 in equity that we made out of that. So then we turned around, and that actually went into one of our investments. So
Love it.
yeah, so it
That's
worked out
awesome.
great. And now she lives in Colorado, and she works for me.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
and
So,
she actually house
so
hacks the house that she has here now too.
oh, I love that. I mean, why
Yeah.
stop? I mean, it's if you're
Yeah.
young and that's like, you're good with it. I wish that we would have known about these options, or at least like had somebody, who could have educated us when we were younger to help us facilitate some of these things. Because I always think about it. My husband and I, we rented a townhouse for the first 6 years that we were together. And it's like, had we even like thought of the idea of house hacking, or had we even have
Hmm.
like, that creative financing even like popped up, how different our lives would be. But,
Oh, yeah.
hindsight's 2020. And
I think about it all the time. I'm like, if I would have started this in my 20s,
oh,
nobody would even know my name. I would be on an island somewhere.
seriously, it's crazy. Okay, so Mychele, this is crazy. In a year and a half, you acquired 15 rentals. Is that correct?
Yeah, we acquired about 15 rentals. And then our broker actually brought us a piece of resort zone land that was in Scottsdale, in northern Scottsdale. It was 200 feet from one of the North America's most popular golf courses. It does about 100,000 rounds a year, and was like, I think you guys should build something on this. So it was zoned to actually build either a resort or a hotel of some sort. I think it was actually zoned for like a 31 unit hotel. And the person who was selling it apparently had his loan pulled because he had invested all of his money into Bitcoin or something at the time, and the bank pulled out because they were kind of worried about how that was going to work out. And so he had to sell. So originally they were selling it for 1.6. And after a lot of negotiating, we got it down to 565.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
That's right.
so we took that piece of land. We didn't really know how to do this because I'd never built anything before. But the great thing is that this was kind of just one of those unicorn investments where when we purchased the land after we got it down $1 million, they handed us all of the plans, all of the architecture stuff, all approved, all of the zoning permits, everything was done. We just had to find a builder and the money. And so
That
we,
a big part of it for sure.
yeah, they had done all of the heavy lifting. And so we interviewed some builders, and then we went to our local bank here in Colorado, even though it's in Scottsdale. Our banker was like, we've never done anything out of state, but we love Scottsdale and we go there a lot. So let's try it. They lent us a $2.4 million to get it done. And so we broke ground on that. So
What year did you break ground on that development?
that was in 2021.
Okay.
And then, of course, we had to go through all of the stuff that was going on with COVID, where not all the contractors could work at the same time. It was hard getting people who wanted to work. It was just a massive production, and just a lot was happening. And so it took a lot longer than we thought, which was one of the things that we were really, really thankful that we had a portfolio that was paying us, because my husband had his W-2 job and we had the portfolio of houses that were paying us monthly, passively. Because the loan came due. So we had to end up paying, it was a construction loan, and then it turned into a conventional loan because the project ended up taking 8 months longer than it was supposed to because of all of the problems. And so thankfully we were able to pay the note because of our passive income, and it didn't affect us. And I think that's something that people don't really think about a lot, is just, they're like, oh, I want to go in and I want to build this, or, oh, I want to go in and I want to, build an RV park, is what I always hear. And I'm like, okay, but how do you carry that loan if it's not making any money? And that's how people get themselves in trouble. So,
And I mean, to your point, like that's how you got this deal, because somebody got themselves into trouble with alternative
correct.
investing. And, I think it's really important, because right now we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of distressed owners who their commercial loans are now coming due, and the
Mm-hmm.
properties are either worth what they are going to need to be worth in order to refinance them, or they don't have another alternative source of income to kind of help feed that until maybe the market starts picking up or changing. So you nailed it right on the head. So
Yeah.
it took 8 months longer. I always tell
Yeah.
people, always anticipate that things are going to be way longer and way more expensive than what you think. Always put in
Yeah.
a conservative valuation. So you finished, I'm assuming it became available in 2022 at some point.
No, it actually became available in 23. So we
23.
opened near the end of 23. And that was it was done building in the summer, but then we had to furnish it and get everything done. So we spent the entire summer furnishing, decorating, getting that done. It was 4 units. Each of the units are 2,500 square feet, all having 3 bedrooms with an en-suite bath, game room, gourmet kitchen, commercial pool, hot tub, putting green in the backyard, fire pits. It's a large compound that you can rent out either by the unit or all of it all together, which does really well for waste management or big productions like that. Big corporate retreats. I'm actually hosting a retreat out there in 2 weeks for the RV industry, where a bunch of us are getting together to do a mastermind. So it's kind of cool that I get to be the one that, I'm like, oh, I've got a place. Um, so,
Yeah.
um, but it rents out really well. My husband decided the day that we opened the doors that he was no longer going to stay employed in his W-2. And so he left his W-2. And that was kind of one of those, pivotal moments of this is really cool, but oh my gosh, I'm so scared. So, because we've always had the backup, the constant, like, this is our paycheck. This is where this comes from. This is our health insurance. We know this check is coming in no matter what happens. And so it was kind of a mind shift for us, but it was one of those things that we were like, we really just need to like decide we're going to do this or not. But it also came with, how do we do this without using any of our reserve money? Because we don't, what if something happens? What if we have to carry a loan again? Like, what happens? And now we're using this money as our income. So now it was just, okay, how do we do this without using any of our income or any of our money to put into the next deal? And how do we keep growing? And so that was kind of how we pivoted into creative financing completely.
I love that.
And
Well,
yeah, it was, oh, go
before
ahead.
we dive into creative financing, I think the biggest hurdle that a lot of people have is, expanding too quickly. And so when they start buying too much stuff and then they just don't know how to manage it properly. So I'm really curious to hear kind of how your strategy was in order to, facilitate all of these moving pieces, your husband working his W-2. So basically, you are the point person for a lot of these. So educate me too, because I have so many moving pieces and it sounds like you have a lot of moving pieces. But how did you manage all of these properties and continue to still add to your portfolio?
Well, so in the beginning, I actually property managed all of our long-term rentals. And long-term rentals are a lot easier to manage. There's not a lot of moving pieces. I feel like, you're basically just renewing leases, you're making sure rent's paid, you're handling and fielding any calls if anything happens, which doesn't happen very often if you buy a property that is less than 10 years old, which is what I kind of stayed within doing. Um, and then I put house warranties on all of them. So if anything broke, I just called one company and they came out and took care of everything. And they're actually based in Colorado, which was really helpful. Um, so doing that, I really learned a lot about operations and just exactly how management works and all that. When I moved into short-term rentals, so when we built the resort, I actually was like, okay, I've never handled anything that's a nightly rental. So then I bought my first beach house also on top of that. I learned very, very quickly I do not like running STRs. There's a lot of operations and I'm just not down for it. It was just a lot. And to be someplace, because I'm in Colorado and our beach houses are on the Gulf Coast. And so we've got a lot of things that I've never dealt with. I've never dealt with hurricanes.
Mhm.
How do we secure everything if something comes in? What happens if a flood happens? We're right on the beach. Um, what if the furnace goes out? What if salt water gets into like the water tank? Like, I don't know. What if a seagull flies in the house? I don't, like it was just all these different things that I'm like, I don't totally know how this stuff works. So I ran it probably, I want to say for like 2 months and I was done. And I was like, I don't know if this is something I really want to do. And so I started interviewing managers. Found a small management company that was local. It was a single mom that was just, she was building a management company and she had a couple people working for her, built a really good connection with her, worked out a deal that if she handled multiple ones of my properties, I got a discount. And it worked out really, really well. And so going into like our villas, I knew right away, I'm not managing this. I'm not going to do it. I want somebody who's there. I want somebody who can be there quickly if something happens. And then on top of that, being in Scottsdale, they started implementing these different rules for short-term rentals. And even though we're resort zoned and don't technically fall under short-term rental laws, since we were running like one and we were in a neighborhood, I really kind of wanted to appease the neighbors and be able to
Yeah.
like follow the rules. So there's like quiet hours. You have to have somebody who's in the area that can get there within 30 minutes if there's a problem. And I wanted somebody who, especially since it's such a large property, if something were to happen and there was a complaint, I wanted somebody who could be there within a couple of minutes to make sure that everything was handled. And so
Yeah.
we brought in a management company and that just it's made things so much easier. So at this point, I've now, made friends with management companies, and it's great because they manage everything, the day-to-day operations. I mean, I was at dinner with a friend the other night, and it's my husband and I, her and her husband, were talking about RV park investments because she wants to move into a different part of her investing strategy, and she runs short-term rentals. All night long, like the entire dinner, her phone is beeping. And I'm like, what's going on? And she was like, they can't find washcloths. And I'm like, we're at dinner. And she's like, oh my gosh, they can't, they don't like the cups, and they don't like this, and they need the code for this. And I was like, I don't get paid enough to handle that every 5 seconds. So I was like, that's just not, I don't want to do that. That's nowhere in my wheelhouse. I want to be able to sit down when I have dinner with my family and friends, and I want to enjoy my time. I don't want to be answering somebody's text message every couple of minutes. And so I'm just really glad that I understood where my boundaries were, and that I could not handle it. And I found the perfect people to handle that for me. So
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I moved out of it.
I'm nodding along and smiling because we had 2 short-term rentals that I was self-managing as well. And so I completely understand your friend in getting, oh, I can't get into the house, the code isn't working, or oh, this is broken, or oh, this and that. And I've heard it all. And I managed the one for almost 5 years, and I was like, this is the first year that we're like, nope, we're going to convert it to a long-term rental. It's got to be, way less management side. And, I think there is a place for short-term rentals, but I think that if you are going to be an investor and have multiple things, hiring a management company for those is 100% the way to go, because to your point, it is a lot of daily transitional activities that I know that I don't want to take on.
Yeah, no, it was a lot. It was, and I'm really glad because, like, looking back on it, I wouldn't have the time or the capacity to do it all. And so when I moved into having management for that, my oldest daughter actually was like, hey, I want to make some extra money. What can I do for you? And I was like, let's transition you into managing our long-term portfolio. And so she actually ended up taking over a long-term portfolio. So now she does all of our contracts, all of our renewals, all of our, comps around the area. She handles all the calls, if anything happens, the maintenance, all of that stuff. So that has been completely taken off of my plate. And then, like, with our short-term rentals, those are all handled by the management companies. And that's when we jumped into RV parks. And so that was like learning a whole new beast. But I have to say, like, learning the operations in a long-term rental, then pivoting into a short-term rental and understanding like nightlies, I think it really set me up well for understanding RV parks and how operations work in that. So it's not completely the same, but a lot of the elements are the same. It's a lot of hospitality. It's a lot of understanding how your numbers work. It's a lot of understanding where you break even and how to manage the money, management styles, how to run operations, like all of those things kind of come into play.
Yeah. So now that you kind of set the stage, you are the RV park queen. So I want to hear more about, what sparked you getting into RV parks, some of the lessons that you've learned. If people are interested in getting into RV parks, like what things should they be looking for, or what things should they be aware of before they pull the trigger?
So when we first got into an RV park, like I said, we had literally just opened the doors to our villas in Scottsdale. And we really were looking for creative ways that we could finance our next deal. So we were actually looking at like multifamilies, mobile home parks, the traditional ways that people scale. And somehow or another, somebody had actually sent us an RV park. And while we were looking at mobile home park, storage units, multifamilies, this one little line about an RV park was at the bottom of this email. And so my husband kind of touched on it, and he was like, do you know anything about RV parks? And I was like, I've never been in one. I don't really know anything about them. And so we really kind of started researching it. We started running numbers on it and started realizing, this is kind of one of those things that not a lot of people talk about, but it can be a gold mine if you run them right. So, you aren't dealing with apartments. You're not dealing with tenants. You're not dealing with tenancy laws. Squatters, I can have somebody removed from one of my parks in a couple of hours, depending on your location. The sheriff will come out and assist because now they're just trespassing on private property. I don't have a lot of maintenance issues. If somebody moves out, I don't have to repaint anything or change locks. I literally blow off a pad and keep moving. So my pad's ready in like 2 hours. I don't have to have a major cleaning crew come in and clean the hotel room. There were just so many different aspects that I was like, why didn't we look at these before? Like when you go into, say, a storage unit, somebody pays you like $65 for a month to store their stuff in a small storage unit. I charge $65 a night, and then they move on. So people bring their own trash and they take their trash with them. It's not like, I'm setting up beds. I'm not setting up, cleaning dishes. I'm not doing any of those things. They bring in their own camper with their own stuff. They're comfortable in their own beds, their own linens. They've got their own thing going on. They've got their own dishes. They're completely comfortable and happy. They just stay in my place and use my campfire pit, and then they take everything with them and go home. So it was just kind of one of those models that I was like, what are we doing? Most of them are in destinations that are beautiful. They usually accommodate tourists anyway. One of my destinations has 10 million visitors a year.
Wow.
We have one park that is in the middle of nowhere, but the park is actually the destination. And so they come there and stay with me for like a week at a time, and they take advantage of our water park on site, our fishing ponds. We do karaoke night on Saturdays. It's like a big party for a week. And who doesn't want to hang out in a place where everybody's in a good mood on vacation? So
Right.
It was just a fun strategy to get into. And we actually didn't realize how fun it would be until we actually did it.
Yeah. And I think that, it's important to understand if you are going to open up an RV park, the location has to make sense for people obviously utilizing it as a space for RVs. So tell us a little bit about like the markets that you have identified. And were most of these already existing RV parks, or did you create them from scratch?
No, so all of our parks were existing. They were all from other people who had either built them themselves and they were ready to retire. And a couple of them were from investors who had bought them, thought that they kind of understood operations, and then found out that they were in over their heads and could not completely handle what was going on. And so we took them over and placed operations and streamlined systems. So as an example, one of our parks this last weekend, we actually held a large bike fest. It's the end of a Sturgis bike tour across America that they do every year, and they end in our park. With operations, we have a full restaurant on that park. Everything that was going on, we have like 25 people that were on the park employed for 3 whole days there. Our numbers were up 30%, but our operations costs were down 16%. So It's a really big balance of raising your profits while streamlining all of your systems and lowering your operation costs.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to destinations, we look at places that are tourist destinations. So we're looking at, national parks, tourist areas that could involve lots of road travel. Like we have a park in Branson, Missouri. We have a park off of Route 66. Bucket list areas. We have a park in Valdez, Alaska. It's actually the largest park in Alaska, but it's a bucket list area that everybody wants to go to at least once. So people drive their RVs up and they do a whole trek for the summer that leads them up to Valdez, and then they come home. Some of our parks are complete destination areas. So like our Virginia park is a place where you would go to and spend your summer with your family, just connecting, having a family reunion, having a really good time. And it is literally a large family party park. Like they come out and they do karaoke night. They do cornhole tournaments. We do, golf cart parades. We do, blackout slides where we have everything lit up with, what are those things? Those glow sticks. We do water park fights. We finished our season with a giant water park fight for the guests and the staff. And now we're getting ready to go into Halloween, which is where we're going to be doing ghost story competitions, decorating competitions, traditional trick-or-treating, which is kind of lost nowadays. Everybody does trunk-or-treating, but now we're going to go back to doing traditional trick-or-treating and giving prizes for the best decorated camper. So it's just, we do fishing charters out of our one in Florida. It's just a really great time for families to kind of connect and just kind of be off their phones.
Hmm. I love that. So, as far as the operations are concerned, do you basically are you the operator manager of all these parks, or do you hire people specific to the locations and you have people who how do you run them?
So our first park we moved into to learn operations. I highly recommend if you're going into an RV park, especially if it's the first one, that you personally operate it for a good amount of time just so that you understand what you're doing. RV parks are very notorious for being cash operated businesses, which means that a lot of things can slip through the cracks if you're not the one that's on site and you're not streamlining your systems and ensuring that there's credit card payments or a way to track payments that are coming through. One of our previous owners had a manager that was pocketing some of the stays and not reporting them. So you have to be really diligent about making sure that you know what's coming in and out of your park and how your operations work. And so, we really got in there. We put in all of our back end systems, put in all of our marketing, rebranded, restructured, redid the entire park, and just kind of learned how it works, what people are looking for when it comes to RV parks, what people come to your RV park in general. Each park attracts a different type of guest. I mean, we have complete fishermen that come down to our Florida park and they do, family fishing trips where like families come down and like we're talking generations of families. Like there's 73 people who come down every year from this one group, and it's generations of fathers and sons that do this trek every year together, and they come down to this park. So for 73 years they've been doing this. And it's just seeing these different people who come into these parks and understanding who your market is and tailoring it towards those people is exactly what it is. Like I said, Virginia, completely family oriented. It's full family reunions, family and friends getting together for a summer week to have a good time. So we know, like, we've got to have activities that keep everybody going and keep everybody active. So actually, this next summer, we're going to start implementing like kids camps and having a camp counselor on hand that is doing kids activities. So if the parents want to go into town and do something, they can do that and put their kid in a kid camp. Alaska, a lot of retirees come up there because this is like, they're traveling the world. They have the freedom to do that. And this is their bucket list item. And so we get a lot of retirees that come up to our Alaska park to hang out for some of them come up for the entire summer.
Oh wow.
So it's just
Yeah.
finding out who exactly comes to your park and catering towards them. So we did that for the first few months, and then we trained a manager to take over, and we moved into our second park, which we bought 100% seller financing. And then as we were going, we just kept, like, we started off with a third party management company in those, and we didn't like it at all. They don't have your same culture. They don't have your same fit. They don't have the same hospitality wants that you have. They kind of do everything cookie cutter, and it's really hard to tailor it towards the people that are coming into your park. And so when you personally train your managers or have your team personally train it, I feel like you build your own culture and you know exactly who's coming there.
Yeah, and I think that basically everything that you've said all comes down to really understanding your market, understanding who your target demographic is that you are catering to, regardless if it's a long-term rental, a short-term rental, an RV park. That's going to be what separates you and what makes you successful.
Yes. And I it's completely true because it's, a lot of people in the industry have been talking about how, some of their parks are down and all of our parks are up about 30%.
Incredible. Incredible. Mychele, I feel like I could keep talking to you for hours right now. But I want you to kind of summarize, like, if people were thinking about getting into this as an investment opportunity, like, give us your overall piece of advice to kind of help them get past that analysis paralysis, or, that stage of wanting to do it, but not actually taking action on doing it.
I think some of the biggest things that you need to understand is one, understand your capacity for what you can handle. So, understand, like, if you're going to buy an RV park, do you want to run it or do you want to have somebody come in and run it for you? That'll dictate how big your park needs to be. how much money your park needs to make for you to pay for a salary, and kind of where exactly and the type of park that you want. Are you going to do a long-term park where it's a steady income, or can you go into a transient park where you potentially will make more money, you can do more value adds, but it's also a little inconsistent because you've got high seasons and low seasons. And then find people out there who are doing the thing that you want to do and ask them questions, lots of questions. Ask away. Like, it's that will streamline the learning process so much.
Yeah, no, definitely. I 100% agree. So, Mychele, if people were interested in looking into RV parks, how can they reach out to you?
Actually, you can find me on Instagram, where I'm always giving tips and tricks on how we increase the NOI in our parks. It's Mychele Bisson, Mychele Bisson. And you can also find me on Facebook under the same name. And then I actually have a webpage called mychelebisson.com.
Love it. Mychele, thank you again so much. I learned a lot from this, and I'm sure everybody else has, but I want to have you back on at some point in time that we can kind of dive into more of like some of your creative strategies that you were able to deploy, because I think that was a whole piece that we didn't even like get to touch on. So
Yeah.
stay tuned on that one. We'll definitely be revisiting that. But thank you again. And that wraps it up for another episode. And I am Prof M out. And for those who want a more hands-on learning experience, check out our online courses at inspirewealtheducation.com. Whether you're just starting out or looking to expand your investment portfolio, I've created step-by-step guides and resources to help you achieve your financial goals. So hit that subscribe button and let's start building your wealth one episode at a time.